Okay, we're here on the scrap. I'm very excited to be joined by today's guest, the current and three-time RevPro British Heavyweight Champion, Grand Slam winner in RevPro. And as we sit here today, 15 days away, August 29, he will defend that championship, headlining the 14-year anniversary show for the promotion at Wembley Arena. Um, Biggest show in the history of the promotion. It couldn't be a better main event, a more fitting main event. We'll come to that in a moment. Michael Oku, I appreciate you taking the time today.
Hey, thank you for having me, Steve. It's cool. I think this is probably my first official interview of like I'm trying my best to do a media tour. I'm trying to be as professional as possible, do a media tour, and you're number one. So here we go.
We know Andy always does his media tours ahead of these big anniversary shows. So, yeah, why not get the champ involved as well? I've reached out to Andy. Hopefully, we'll be getting Andy on here as well. Um, but yeah, how are we doing? Just a couple of weeks away from what is, I'm sure, a pretty big moment in your career.
Yeah, no. Well, first of all, I'm boiling hot.
It's
That's the
hot.
first
I hope you
most
can't hear,
important
I
thing.
hope you can't hear my fan behind me. It's really hot.
Yeah, no. I've got like two fans pointing at me right now that is off camera. But like in terms of how I'm feeling and ready for the show, I'm very excited for obvious reasons. This is this is as big as it gets for RevPro so far. So it's an exciting time. I'm trying to, for me, what I try and do is try and treat my schedule and everything as the same as it always is. I try not to do things differently or ramp things up or even pull things back. So I'm trying to make sure everything is the same so that like I don't become pressured or nervous for any other reason. But yeah, no, that's kind of how I'm feeling at the moment.
I'm sure that's tough because obviously you're a mainstay in RevPro, as we said. It's a big RevPro show, but the year doesn't stop after that show. You've got to the next week probably go to some other one of the other many promotions that you wrestle for. So, is it hard in some ways to kind of put too much on one show when there's just never-ending shows for you afterwards?
Well, I think the mindset I have is the fact that every promotion, pretty much up and down the world, they've all got cameras. They're always recording. They're always filming. So you never know who's going to be watching any show that you're on, any match that you have. So I always have the mentality of trying to give it my all on any show that I'm on because there's a camera and there's fans that have paid to see me. And you never know what either that opportunity might lead to, and you should treat every match as big as possible, because if you do that, then the fans do, and if the fans do, then they're gonna keep kind of invested into pro wrestling in general as well as yourself. So, yeah, like as big as this show is, and I'm gonna kind of make sure that I give my all to this show. As you said, I mean, just RevPro, for example, like if you just use RevPro, for example, Portchester Hall is the week after. So they're going back to the shows the week after. There's no break. Yeah, that's why I think it's important to just kind of think of it as like, all right, this is a big stop and it's an important show and it's huge. And we're going to talk so much about it, I know. But remember that this is, again, not the be-all, end-all, because there's still much more to happen and there's still much more we can build on from that.
Yeah, and you mentioned obviously Portchester Hall the week after, and I'll just say now, Refro's schedule these last couple of years has been insane for an independent promotion. I mean, you're getting definitely two or three shows a month. Sometimes you run every week, sometimes you got weekends involved as well. So yeah, the schedule that RevPro have been able to do for an independent promotion has just been incredible. And obviously you've been a big part of that, and obviously Portchester the week after Wembley, like we say, it's really impressive actually.
Yeah, no, I can't think of another promotion that runs like, again, other than
I
companies
think
that are
I
on
think
television.
GCW is the only other independent
GCW as well.
promotion I can think of. But yeah,
Yeah, that's the only thing,
that
the one that's in my head, GCW. But then, yeah, like you said, in terms of when I'm looking at GCW, I think they do some stories around a lot of the big matches. I would, go ahead and say with confidence that RevPro is one of the best at making sure things feel episodic when it comes to stories up and down the card, as well as, week to week. Again, like, you have to, other than, a GCW, but then if you don't say GCW, then you actually just have to talk about WWE and AEW as what is week to week pro wrestling look like. And so for an independent wrestler promotion to be attempt to do the same thing, I think it does a good job in rewarding the fans that follow the product week to week. I think we're doing a great job.
Yeah, I think there was a time a few years ago where RevPro, rightly or wrongly, kind of had that reputation as being like a big match promotion. But I think certainly these last few years, the week to week storytelling has been incredible. And then obviously you go into different cities, different part of the countries, and he's talked about the fact where you need to have shows that are good standalone shows for the fans that only come when it's in Stevenage or only come when it's in Coventry or Sheffield or Southampton. But there's obviously the fans who are traveling the country to go to the shows. There's fans that are watching on demand as well. So I think RevPro is like almost a perfect balance of being able to appeal to both.
Yeah, no, I've said to many people ad nauseum that I have no interest in running promotion because it seems like a nightmare trying to, appease as many people as possible, not just fans, but even like, partners that you're working with. But I would say that, you know, as you said just there, you want to try your best with each show not to punish fans if they've not been following week to week, but also at the same time reward the fans that have. And that is a tricky thing to balance. And I think, again, and RevPro are getting better at it as time goes on.
Yeah, so obviously week to week storytelling. And we've seen the story that you and Mills have been telling. But you wrestled Joe Lando this past weekend in Southampton. How was that one?
Yeah, again, such a cool thing to have a singles with Joe Lando. I think we've maybe done, we did a tag in Southampton a few months ago, but our only other singles match was in, I want to say, Harlow, like 8 years ago. 8 years ago, we had one singles match, and I think the only footage of it is the MV that he made that's probably still on his YouTube channel somewhere. So to see how far the both of us has come, like Joe's done such an amazing job at branding himself and figuring out who he is as a wrestler, and so much so that he's, again, been traveling. I was about to say America, but the world. He's had a couple of Japan tours. The tryout it's a cool thing. It's a cool thing to get a tryout as well. So it's so cool to see how far he's come. But then also actually the both of us from 2019 to now. And yeah, it was a match that I was very happy with. And I would think that Joe was very, very happy with his performance as well.
Of course, and then obviously we do have one more step before the anniversary I want to touch on. This Sunday, Cardiff. Yeah, the final show before Wembley. I'm sure you'll be making your presence felt. I know you've got a little bit of a get back to go for after what happened at Southampton at the end there. So yeah, I'm sure you'll be making your presence felt with that one too.
Yeah, I don't know if this is I will be appearing. I think that's a, let me put that out there.
We can go with that.
Yeah, if that's a little breaking news, I will be appearing.
Okay,
I don't.
You are on the poster.
Yeah, you would think, right? You don't want some false advertising to occur, but so I will be there. We'll see. We'll see what kind of presence I have or what kind of match I have. Again, we're 2 weeks out. It's the last show before Wembley. So, but at the same time, we don't want it to be a thing of, oh, this is not the big show. Therefore, let's not give them big matches. I mean, Bandita's on the show, for goodness sake. So I'm fairly sure that if I'm going to be in a match as well, it's going to be a headline match for sure.
Perfect. Obviously, the big one though, the main event coming up, Wembley Arena, yourself and Connor Mills in the main event. Like I said at the start of this interview, maybe the most fitting match that RevPro could have put on in that main event spot. Two guys where obviously your careers have just intertwined with each other for years. You've made a point of the fact that you brought Mills into RevPro. You started off as the tag team, Destination Everywhere, and then you've drifted apart a little bit since the turn, but it's like you're never too far away from each other. And then obviously he wins the Rumble. His tag team partner J. Joshua the champion, you get that title shot, you win the title, and then boom, Michael Oku, Connor Mills, main event of Wembley Arena. So yeah, what does it mean to you to kind of be in such a big spot with this match?
I think obviously nothing is guaranteed, but I always thought that once the Wembley show was announced, that me being in the main event would make sense in terms of, again, Andy's philosophy, especially with the last few anniversary shows, is that he still wants to make sure that when even there are, you know, fans that will be sampling the products, that will be flying in to see maybe RevPro for the first time or for the first time in a long time, that it still feels like a quintessential RevPro show. So I know it's important for him to present as many of the RevPro, you know, roster as possible. So when I saw that Wembley was announced, I already in my head thought, I think I should be in the main event. And when it came to who I was wrestling or who my opponent would be, again, there is a gamut of talent. You can drop in any number of talent within RevPro that could fit as a viable main event option. But when it comes to what is a RevPro match, a RevPro story, I think Mills would be kind of, I'd argue, would be the perfect opponent for me to have. And we've had such a long journey from like the last time we were like feuding, which was in 2022. We've gone on such different paths, professionally as well as personally. And I think that the fact that we've found our way back to the main event of Wembley Arena, a place that we've both already wrestled at with Progress, and now we're doing it to close the show. There's something about it that you can't write. You know, you can't write it. And when we get on the microphone and when we're talking about the things we're saying to each other, and even if it's in backstage comments on the microphone, it's not hard to think of what to say, because we just have to talk about our life experiences. We talk about the fact that I begged Andy to get him into RevPro. We talk about the fact that, you know, we drifted apart. You know, these are things that if you ask anybody close to us knows that these are factual things. And also there's the professional jealousy of like, yeah, we wanted each other to succeed, but we also believed that we were better than the other. So what better way than to settle this with a professional wrestling match where one person will be better than the other because they will beat the other person. I think it's perfect pro wrestling.
When you first did the split between you two all those years ago, you obviously mentioned the original feud, then you had time apart from each other. Was there any way you could have imagined it being such a sort of long and winding feud to get to this point when you first did the split? Do you have any idea the scale this rivalry could get to?
I would not have thought that it would have like found its way to the main event at Wembley Arena. I mean, even thinking about wrestling at Wembley Arena at that point in 2022 would have been far-fetched for an indie promotion. Again, we think about, again, with Progress, I was in the pre-show Battle Royal, and that was like a year. I was a year into my wrestling career. He was in like a tag team Thunder Bastard match, and he wasn't even in the ring for that long, but he was part of it, and it was still. I think the both of us would agree when we would say it was 100% a very cool moment that we got to be part of that show. But then that show happened because the British wrestling scene was on fire, and that show could be done at Wembley Arena because British wrestling was on fire. But at the same time, it was nearly the start of the downturn, because a lot of wrestlers were no longer able to, like soon after, were no longer able to do any indie because of NXT UK and everything in between.
It wasn't long after that.
Yeah, it wasn't long after. So in terms of an indie running Wembley Arena, I wouldn't have not even thought that would be a possibility. But when it comes to myself and Mills headlining a Wembley Arena show, after 2022, I really did think that, you know, I didn't think we'd actually wrestle again in RevPro. I thought that like that was the end, the blow off, so to speak. and then we just kind of have our own careers and find our own successes within RevPro. And we did that. In fact, I think about 2023, the same day that it was your call where I won the British Heavyweight Championship for the first time. He won the Cruiserweight Championship. So it was kind of, it felt like we were taking our own routes. And then there was a little period where, you know, leading up to the Copper Box, it was me that was, you know, feuding with Luke Jacobs, and he had his match against Ethan Allen. So it was so weird that even though we were apart, there were still parallels you can draw between us. So I wouldn't have expected that it would have ended up here, but at the same time, it just feels right.
From that rivalry, I put out the call to some people if they wanted to throw some input in here.
Sure.
I got this one over from your brother, who I'm sure,
Of course,
sure you're familiar with, yeah. Who, they asked, is there any intention going in this rivalry with Mills to have similarities between Danielson and Nigel, in the way that you always win, like Danielson always wins, given the similarity between Connor and Nigel as well.
I think that would be not unintentional. So the thing, here's something about myself and Mills, and I think it's quite obvious to see if you like really pay attention to our wrestling. I think our all-time favorite wrestlers between myself and him are very different in terms of kind of what they bring. Like my favorite all-time wrestler is The Rock, and then second is Chris Jericho, and then like, but like coming to like number 3 or 4 is like Danielson. He pops in, is what I'm saying. But like all time for Mills probably is McGuinness. McGuinness is really up there. Also Danielson is really up there. Our philosophies in terms of what like we like in wrestling are different in terms of what we prioritize. But like he also thinks The Rock is great. And like when we were like close friends, like he also thinks The Rock is great. He also thinks all these like people from like WWE are great. But I also think all these Ring of Honor people are great. Like that was some of my favorite wrestling to watch. So we very much enjoy the same wrestling, but we prioritize different wrestling. And so I think I've watched every single Danielson Nigel match, basically is what I'm trying to say, as well as of course he definitely has. So there was never a conscious thought to think, okay, we're going to sit down, study these matches and see how there could be parallels. I think it happened subconsciously, honestly. I think it's a subconscious thing of these are who influence us. And so naturally we're going to take things from them. And sometimes accidentally there will be parallels between those wrestlers that we're fans of and ourselves.
I mean, I think that's natural for every wrestler, right? I mean, every wrestler's gonna, the people who they watched as a kid or the people who really inspired them to become wrestlers in sort of like the teenage years, you're always gonna take bits from those guys, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's been times where people have said, "Oh, I've noticed there's a lot of Christian Cage with what you do," and I was like, I wasn't even trying to do Christian Cage. He is 100% in one of my favorite wrestlers ever, but I didn't even realize I was trying to. There was anything that would show that. So yeah, you do a lot of, when you're in wrestling, you do a lot of emulating without realizing that you're emulating.
You mean you look at some of the outfits you've been wearing recently? Maybe there's a bit of Rock in there. Who knows?
Right, exactly. Well, maybe that is intentional. That one is.
Yeah. Okay. Obviously, the last match you did with Mills, you did the unsanctioned match at Portchester a few months ago. What were your thoughts on how that one went down? And now you're kind of tasked on upping that one, but in a singles match. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Right. I think that's probably my highlight of the year. Because of not to get fully into the weeds of it, but I think you'd understand what I'm saying. I think the objective going into that match was very well and truly achieved, and I thought that would be a huge challenge to do, but I thought that it kind of came off exactly the way we wanted it to. My hope was that people would feel uncomfortable with the match. My hope would be that it wasn't everybody's cup of tea, because if it was, then it wouldn't be an unsanctioned match. Something that I did want that didn't happen, that I kind of wished would happen was, well, part of the presentation of the unsanctioned match was kind of like, hey, the RevPro show is finished, and now this, we are not liable for kind of like this match. We're not responsible for this match you're going to see. I kind of wanted them to take the next step further, and I was hoping that Francesca would say, hey, like, we recommend people go home. Like, I wanted them to tell people to actually leave. Like, listen, the show is over. This is RevPro. We do not recommend people see this match. Like, I wanted to push it that much further. So then you can't say that you weren't warned. But yeah, with that, we wanted it to be that thing where, like, there's not, it didn't feel like any other match either on the card, any other match that Mills and I have had in the past and Mills and I will have in the future. We really wanted it to be different from anything that we've done anywhere. And I think because we achieved that, I think it's my favorite match of the year so far.
That style of wrestling is generally so un-RevPro as well. Like, we've seen it a few times. We've seen it with, I think of Danny Luna and Alex Windsor with the dog collar match. That was crazy. But generally, you don't see stuff like that in RevPro. Hence why maybe that increases the shock factor, like you say. I don't know.
Oh, no, of course. That is everything with wrestling. It's very easy to... self-restraint is a very powerful thing in wrestling, because you can just do whatever you want. There is nothing stopping you other than yourself from doing whatever you want. And you will find that if you're able to actually use self-restraint, it allows the things that you kind of whip out on rare occasions become more effective. So again, you mentioned that dog collar match. No, I don't think any RevPro fan is going to forget that, because of how insane that match was, just visually, as well as just how great Alex Windsor and Dan Lynn did in that match. And I think because it's not like, every month we do a really crazy hardcore match, that's why it stands out. And I think that's the same thing with the unsanctioned match. It's not a stipulation that happens in RevPro all the time, and the things we used and the way we used it isn't a thing that you see at a RevPro show. So by showing that self-restraint and doing it when it could be very valuable to where we're going, I think that's what made it even more of a kind of a highlight of the year.
Obviously, your character in RevPro has shifted in these last few months. I saw an interview you did last year, and this is something you said, and I want to just bring it up here. You
Uh-oh.
said, I'm the same human being with the same experiences. You're talking about purpose, by the way. I'm the same human being with the same experiences, but there's a different motivation and a slight tweak that makes it completely different. I think that pretty perfectly sums up your journey at the moment. Give us an insight into the character change came around and what some of these tweaks are in your mind.
Again, because we're still in it, I don't want to fully pull back the curtain, but I'm happy but it's such an interesting thing that I did say that sometimes I surprise myself on, like, you do interviews and you're like, I hope I'm consistent with my viewpoints, and I hear that I'm like, okay, yeah, I still think that does make sense. I just have that mind frame with wrestling where if you do a complete 180 of who you are, then it loses authenticity. And I think people are afraid of authenticity in pro wrestling. A lot of wrestlers are. Eddie Kingston, I think, is incredible because he's authentic. And I think people connect with him, fans connect with him because he's authentic. When you're talking with him backstage, you're talking with a guy that you saw out there in the ring. That is 100% the case. But at the same time, if you feel that somebody doesn't actually believe what they're doing or what they're saying, then you kind of loses its effect of what you're trying to achieve. So with what's been happening at RevPro, there is this is a deep cut. There is the very last scene of a video game called Metal Gear Solid's Peace Walker. It's the very, like, one of the last speeches that the voice actor David Hayter, who is the original Snake, says before they go to Kiefer Sutherland. And he talks about the fact that, like, the world's going to be after them. He's almost like talking about how he's going to become the villain in the eyes of the world. And even though they're not really going to change what they're doing and they're not going to change their ideologies, he blames the fact that the times is what change. And it's the times that kind of now frame what they're doing as good or evil. And I think with pro wrestling, and I guess with what I'm doing at the moment, I think there's a very huge audience reaction change when it comes to what I'm doing, but who I'm doing it to. If I'm doing it to a Mills who people really believe kind of should be at the top level or a higher level, then it's going to stick to them more. It's going to hurt them more. If I'm beating all the members of CPF, even if it is fair and square, the love that people have for CPF and all their members will make them not like the fact that I'm beating them. So it was so important for me to try and kind of stay true to what I already have been doing, and I can justify it in my head that I am merely reacting to people who are reacting negative to me. I'm trying to get revenge on people, and me trying to get my comeuppance on those who have wronged me. Some people will dislike, and some people might ignore and put a blind eye to the bad things those people have done to me. I mean, if you think about the Mills thing, I mean, just this year alone, so Mills cost me my match against Jay Joshua. He just played some music. I had a title match and he just played the music. Well, me and him were having a singles match. He played some music. I got distracted and I lost. Didn't do anything, I think, with him until whatever. I didn't even do anything. I just said, hey, leave me alone. Please leave me alone. I'm begging you. We've got this tournament where the winner becomes number one contender. Let's just stay out of each other's way. He gets eliminated. And because he gets eliminated, he then screws me out of my match against TK Cooper. So I have to get revenge. And there comes the unsanctioned match. And people, even though in my head it makes complete sense that I absolutely obliterate him for what he did to me, people don't like that because they like him. I might be suggesting that the fans are the ones who have changed more than me. But in my head, that is what makes sense. And I think that's what then gets guttural reactions from the fans and gets guttural reactions from the crowd, versus sometimes when I see wrestlers, I don't know, sometimes I see wrestlers and then they just kind of put their middle fingers to the crowd, and then the crowd will boo because, yeah, you're going to boo someone who puts a middle finger in your face, but there isn't a legitimate emotion there behind it. And I think when you can get that legitimate emotion from the fans, that's when you make really, really, really cool moments in wrestling.
Obviously, we said at the start, you're a 3-time British heavyweight champion. All 3 reigns, as you touch on, you mentioned obviously the tweaks. There were tweaks between all 3 reigns. First reign, we got underdog champion Michael Oku. Second reign, we had peak top guy John Cena, Michael Oku. And then obviously the third reign, we've got this iteration of Michael Oku now. So what were you able to learn throughout those 3 title reigns to make the next one better?
So I think a thing I've always had when it comes to having a title is you have to tell people how important it is. You have to make sure people, if you don't tell people how important it is, they won't bother with telling other people how important it is. So that first title reign, it was so important, like before winning it, to tell people how important it was to win the title. And then with the first one, I really wanted to make history with it. By that I mean, a lot of the times people will win a title and it's got prestige kind of already kicked into it based off all the previous holders and the previous reigns. but then, so that makes it cool winning it, but then the person who holds it doesn't actually do anything cool with it themselves. So my goal was really to try and break as much ground as possible, or try and do something new that hadn't been done with it. And I think the number one thing for that first reign was to defend it in Arena Mexico for the first time, which any and every wrestler and wrestling fan puts Arena Mexico right there beside Madison Square Garden and the Tokyo Dome, where it's also been defended. So for me to be the one to actually walk out in and out of Arena Mexico with it, made it be like, okay, I've made history with this title. I've now actually, however much more, I've actually raised the profile. So that was the first reign, was trying to, make history with it. And then again, play with being an underdog for as long as you can, because this is something that Zack Sabre Jr. told me about years ago. And he said, like, I know that's your thing and that's how you wrestle and that's your strength, but he just said, just be aware that, like, there's only so long you can be perceived as an underdog if you're the top guy. And I never forgot that. And I was like, okay, that's a good point. Cool. So when the second reign came, I wanted it to be more of, I think the first one was me as well, trying to have people hoping that I kept on to the title. And the second reign was, even though the crowd were with me, I wanted more challengers to potentially be bought as potentially beating me, if that makes sense. So I was really hoping that in that second reign, I can line up a bunch of people and raise them up to, in the future, whenever it is down the line, potentially be future champions. So that is why I with a lot more of those defenses, there was a little murky water. I don't want to say they weren't clean, because they arguably were clean, but there was a story coming out of them with a lot of defenses. I think about TK Cooper and Dave Francisco is like 2-1. Like, if I had just beat them, then it wouldn't do anything for them. It'd be like, oh yeah, okay, so where we thought they were was exactly where they were, and now let's move on to the next challenger. But if they have something to hold on to with those title matches, then that can raise their profile, that can raise their stock, and then they can use that for things in the future. So much so that the two of them are wrestling each other, this Sunday. And I dare say that those title matches that they had with me and that second reign has something to do with it. And we're talking now, well over a year ago. So that was the second reign, trying to see, try and make me, the phrase is a beatable champion, even though, like, versus an underdog, which is kind of the same, but more like I wanted people to want the title change without me, without them actually hating me full on. Like the Leon Slater match I had in Doncaster as well. That's another example. But then this one here, I mean, again, as we're still seeing it as it's happening. I'll maybe there's a follow-up interview we'll do at some point, but with this title reign here, I think I wanted it to really be the solidifying that kind of, I'm a pillar of RevPro. And before, I always had kind of self-doubt and self-confidence in that, or lack of self-belief in that. But I think being a 3-time champion really helps hit that point home, that out of all the wrestlers that have come out of RevPro and people who you think are synonymous with this promotion, this title, and British wrestling, I would like to think this third reign has helped me definitely solidify that fact that I'm one of them.
I think that all makes sense. I think I'm just listening to you go through that, and I'm thinking back to the reigns, and I'm like, yeah, that checks out. So yeah, obviously, we've got to touch on the matches with Will Ospreay. Matches that I think, more than any others, really helped your profile grow in terms of, let's say, outside of the UK. Because the York Hall match and the Crystal Palace match, actually, two of the most molten crowds I've ever been a part of. Like, I still think back to the crowds that night, or those nights. And the crowd so invested in the matches, so in on the story. I guess specifically the York Hall match. Do you remember, or could you tell in the moment how special that one was going to be? Because obviously that's the one that then obviously leads to the other one. In the moment, because could you tell how special that was? Because I think it's genuinely one of my favorite matches of all time. The story you guys told in that one specifically, um, more so than the third match, which the third match is completely ridiculous as well. I love that match too, of course. But I think the second one is always the one that will stick with me. What are the memories of that one specifically?
Yeah, no, that one for sure that's the one that really, I think, put my name out there on a global stage. So it'll always hold a special part. I mean, obviously all of them will, but that one will hold a special place in my heart. I think there are so many moments within the match that stick out to me. When I knew the match would be special was, well, here's the first thing. So I think the very first York Hall match after the pandemic was High Stakes 2021. It was like September kind of thing. And I think there was some tickets that were like honored from if you bought some tickets for a York Hall show before the pandemic. I'm not 100% sure about that. But bottom line is, we hadn't got 1,000 people into York Hall for like a couple of York Hall shows. So I kept checking with Andy. I was like, are we close to 1,000? Are we close to 1,000? When people seem excited about this match, are we close? And so it was cool to finally actually hear that we didn't sell it out. That was the one after that sold out. But this one, we finally got to 1,000. I know Will as well as me were really trying for that and really trying our best with that. When we were there the day of the show, when it felt real special, honestly, was Beyond Gorilla. He put together a promo video with the two of us, and once the video ended, there was a rumble from the crowd, and that was the moment I was like, oh my god, they are ready for this, they are here for this. So that already got me going. And then there was two special moments or crucial moments in the match. There was a time where he gave me an Oz cutter on the apron, and we had both just tumbled to the ground, and we are like we are head to head on the ground, making contact with each other, and we're both bleeding at this point. And I remember there was like a fan that took a photo of it, and I think I posted it. But I just remember that moment of us we'd already been spent, beat up, we're both bloody. I think that's the first time in a match I've ever bled before. And just the crowd reacting whilst we're down. I was like, okay, this seems special. And then the other moment was, well, obviously there's the moment where Amira got pulled. She got pulled through the barricade, which, again, I think the barricades, you gotta hook them like on top of each other in a way. But he pulled her through it, and it came apart. There was just a different noise that you don't hear at wrestling shows when that happened. And then when I came flying out of nowhere, basically, with a flying John Woo shotgun dropkick, which I want to take people back and actually want you to think about that. Where like I went flying as high as I could, 2 feet flying at will, and you've probably felt the floor at York Hall. It's floor. It's not. There's no padding. The adrenaline that was on that I had when I saw him grabbing Amira Blair. When you take that dropkick, you just have to fall on the ground. You hit it, and you have to fall straight on the ground. I felt nothing. It didn't hurt at all because I had so much adrenaline with me. I just went and I just beating him up and just throwing just wild arms. That was an electric moment. There was also a moment where I thought that I put the crab in and I put the bridge in, and that was one of the first times I'd done a bridge as crazy as I'd done. I think I'd given him a Styles Clash as well, which he was doing a lot. And then I put the bridge in, and I thought in my head, there's a chance he might tap right now. There's genuinely, he might just tap right now. And if anything, he should. And the crowd was so hot. So those are the 3 actual moments that I was like, this is cool. I think I said 4, but there were so many in that. Like, there's probably over an hour-long presentation if you're talking like curtain to curtain. The match was like 42 minutes. That match really like got my name out there in terms of the world. It led to, WrestleMania bookings. People wanted to bring me out for WrestleMania that year, and then I think that also was a big key in me being part of the latest PWG Battle of Los Angeles. So special match, 100%.
Yeah, the moment I think of in that match is definitely the way you come flying at him when he pulls a mirror. So that I'm glad you mentioned that bit, because that's always that's the standout moment to me. And also I think when you go flying into the like the lighting rig,
Oh my God, yeah, Jesus.
that's one I still remember to this day.
Yeah, I
That
don't
looked
know
like
why I
it
did
sucked.
that.
That looked like it sucked.
Yeah, because it was the lighting ring, but there's this like table where the ring bell is,
Yeah.
and it's not. And for just for people who aren't or who haven't seen it, it's not like a wrestling table. It's just a
It's
kind
just
of a
a
stool
table.
table,
Yeah.
and I just landed right on it, kind of head first from the top rope, and it didn't budge. I budged, and yeah, that was one of those things that I do, I guess.
And I was gonna say, obviously, the notoriety you got coming out of that match, the word of mouth, obviously the 5 stars, the 6 stars in in the third match, and obviously the way that match really really pushed you onto new levels, like you say, Bowler, which was obviously I assume a pretty special moment for you, right, Bowler?
Oh my goodness, she couldn't even. Okay, so phew, I have. I'm very pessimistic when it comes to my wrestling career, just because, you know, there are so many variables that can create an opportunity or like make you miss an opportunity. So you kind of have to come in with you want to hope for the best, but also be realistic. So when that match with Will happens, again, this is the same year, the same month that he had the Tokyo Dome main event with Okada. The same month is when that match happens. And he has the year he does, but then people are buzzing about this match and in such a way that I had never obviously experienced in my entire life, let alone wrestling career. I wanted to come in with the pessimistic mindset of it's not all downhill from here, but do not expect anything as cool as that to happen in 2023. Okay, you had a great year. It was a great way to start it, and you had great things that came out of that year, but don't expect it. And then I get an email, which I don't even really, I rarely get booking at that time. I rarely got like booking emails. It'll normally be a DM. You know, people just DM now. You don't really need to email people. But an email came through asking if I wanted to be part of Bolo, if I could be, if I wanted to be. And I remembered that I was, again, this is kind of like the insecurity of most pro wrestlers and how little, in general, most wrestlers believe in themselves. I was convinced that this was Mad Kurt trolling me. I thought Mad Kurt found a PWG email and he thought, I'm going to send this email and make him believe that he's been asked to be in Bola. That was my first thought.
It sounds like it checks out.
You know what I mean? I was like, that's why I messaged him. I was like, if I swear that if you've done this, because I'm on the verge of tears if this is real. So I had to ask people who have wrestled for PWG before, like, is this the real email? And they're like, that's the real email, brother. And I was like, okay, here we go. And so to know that, I think I got that email in like November of 2022. And then they might have announced it in December. I was like, that's a great way to start 2023. The same way that Will Ospreay match is a great way to start 2022. Bola, where I wrestled Takeshita, Co-Appreciation Society the next day. An incredible way to start 2023 and keep that momentum going.
Yeah, obviously you mentioned the guys you wrestled there, getting in the ring with Jericho, which then obviously becomes pertinent later when you go on the cruise and you win the Jericho Cruise Championship. Yeah, but I guess you talk about the guys you wrestled there, and that's obviously, I assume, a big part of getting you to AEW for those appearances as well.
Again, I would think so. You know, you would think that everything means something, or every step, or like, you know, every experience can lead to something. Like, it's a snowball effect of the Will match at York Hall leading to Bola, and then, you know, them trusting me, being like, you know, so the promoter is Super Dragon. Super Dragon is the promoter of PWG, and for the guy who I've been watching forever and like PWG that I've been watching forever, to be like, the match that makes the most sense is Michael Oku versus Takeshita. And then I have to I have to, make sure that I don't disappoint, and I feel like I didn't disappoint. To then the next day be like, oh yeah, Michael Oakley's going to be involved in the tag, and he'll be wrestling in Jericho Appreciation Society, which includes, and Daniel Garcia will be there, who, again, he's like I'm someone who I'm proud to call a friend of mine, and is like a big proponent of me from what I've heard. But then Chris Jericho, I mean, goodness me, Chris Jericho. I get to do a lot of stuff and work in the ring with Chris Jericho, who are one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, and he just took a liking to me. He just took a liking to me based on how we wrestled together in this, what was again a 10-man tag. There's all these people there, but he took a liking to me, got me on Talk Jericho, got me on his cruise, become the Chris Jericho champion. It's things I couldn't have predicted, and that was how the cruise, winning that title, was how I started 2024. So I've got like a lot of good starts of the year in like a 3-year span of 2022 to 2024, and yeah, like I don't know which, this is the reason why then I got to wrestle for AEW and started to wrestle for AEW. But I think it's probably a combination of all those things that led to, this will make sense. And we go to 2024, the Crystal Palace match with Ospreay, where Tony Khan's in attendance to see it happen.
Yeah, obviously, there's this great video of you at AEW the first time in Cardiff. You're backstage with the mirror. Chris Hero is giving you a hug. You look nervous for a second. It looks like you don't know what that reaction's going to be. You don't know if the people are going to know you. And then the music starts. Now we play. You hear the crowd, and then your reaction just goes 180. You're hyped. I've never seen you so hyped. And then yeah. So what are your memories of that moment in Cardiff?
Yeah. It's again, it's still pinned, I think, on my Instagram. It's going to take a lot of work to get something that unpins it from my memories, because it's exactly what you said. What you see is how it really felt. It was coming. Pessimism is horrible. It's an important trait, I guess, but every wrestler has it. Where I think it's healthier if I have the mindset of, don't expect people to know you. That way you won't be disappointed or sad when they don't know you. And my thinking was, maybe these are people that are here to see AEW. Even though it's the UK, and obviously I've wrestled up and down the country, they are here to see AEW, and that could be a completely different audience from people who go to see indie wrestling. So they will probably only know people who are from AEW. So do your thing, just wrestle well, and that's all you can control. So move on to that. I wasn't even sure that they had my music, so that was the other thing from the video of like, you can kind of hear me being like, oh, they found my music. That was kind of like a thing of like, okay, that's my music playing. Okay, they're using my actual music that's happening, because it all was like, to me, it was at least like all spur of the moment, all last minute in terms of when I found out about it. Again, I've gone on record saying I had about 30 minutes to get ready to then wrestle for AEW for the very first time. I wasn't aware of it, but the only thing that, now I look back on the hindsight, that might give me a clue that they knew that they wanted to use me and wrestle just without telling me, was, so I went there as an extra. They usually get like, the local wrestlers, and they have them as extras, and if they want to use people, that's the thing. There was going to be on the show an MJF, Will Ospreay back and forth on Dynamite, and they wanted to have security there. And obviously they're going to use the local wrestlers, the extras there, to be security. They naturally said, definitely not him, because I had just wrestled MJF like a couple of weeks prior. And obviously I had wrestled Will, and that's why MJF wrestled me, because I had the match with Will. So it wouldn't make sense if he is a security guard. So I was like, okay, well, that's cool. That's at least cool that they thought that, and that's interesting, because they could have also just been like, we don't care. We are AEW. We don't care. And then after that, the extras coordinator did a little register just to see if everybody's here. And they're going through everyone's name, and my name's not on the list. And I'm like, I feel like I didn't say anything. I was like, because I don't want them to just get rid of me and just kick me out and just say, you need to get out of here. You're not supposed to be here. But I definitely feel like I was told I should be here. So I was like, okay, interesting, whatever. Just gonna hang out in catering. And it was at catering that's when I bumped into Chris Hero and he told me that I'm gonna be wrestling. I was like, okay, cool. So again, a very cool thing to like Chris Hero, who I developed a relationship with at that first WrestleMania trip in 2022 in Texas, and we just always kept in touch. For him to be like there telling me that I'm gonna wrestle, and then him quickly giving me just a quick hug of good luck before we go out the curtain, and the person that's filming that is Will Ospreay. I didn't know, by the way. It wasn't even like, hey, could you film this? Because this would be a cool content. I had no idea. It's so dark back there, you can't see anything. At the time, I don't think I was wearing contacts, so I can't see anyway. It was all a blur. So I didn't know he was filming that at all. And I didn't ask him to. And it's just cool for him to just think, this is a special moment. And they would probably want this, documented. So I'm going to film it. And yeah, it was just a very special moment, just that moment of walking through and hearing that Raw, 100%.
And then I guess to complete the AEW journey so far, Forbidden Door at the O2 last year, opening the card with Speedball and Kevin Knight. I know Speedball is someone that's quite a big influence on you as well. And I know you said, I saw in the other interview you did that was the first show you went to at that arena, a Monday Night Raw. And I think I was at the same Monday Night Raw.
Really? Oh, look at that.
I think so. But no, obviously, special moment for you in, the biggest arena in London to kind of get on the pay-per-view, on the pay-per-view buy-in. And then, yeah. But I think the one moment that really stands out from this match, you know where I'm going. It's kind of a common theme with you, let's be honest.
Yeah.
You're setting up for the Fosby flop. Toa Leona, big giant power lifter, Toa Leona, counters you out of the ring. Yeah, right onto your head. I think a lot of people were scared. I've seen you wrestle lots of times. I'm used to it, let's be honest. Yeah, so how, yeah, that's crazy. I think, was that the worst bump you've taken? Let's start with that.
Oh, goodness me. That's a good question. So it probably can't be, because I was able to still wrestle like 2 days later. I had my second tour of Mexico. I was on a flight the next day to then get to Mexico on Tuesday, and I wrestled that day. It's 100% up there, but I've had bumps where it has indeed injured me, where I'm out for like a month, or really early in my career, I missed a moonsault, but I fell into the ring, and that's when I broke my wrist. So I wouldn't say it's number one, but of course, in terms of spectacle, nothing will ever top how it looked, where it happened, and everything that went into it. I mean, yeah, that's it was a tough one. It was a tough one to try and get through, and once it happened, I was like, oh god, yeah, that was it was a rough landing, and whew, yeah, that's just yeah.
There was a similar one in Stevenage with the Go-Go that I was in the crowd for. That one still makes me wince to this day.
Well, there's a couple in that match. There was the one where he kind of leg presses me over the top rope when I'm trying to grab him, and I go just flying right over the top rope. And then there's the second one where he gives me a pounce, and my legs hit the top rope, and it's almost like as I'm up in the air, he pushes me with everything, and I'm up in the air, and my legs hit the top rope, and that kind of creates a fast snapping motion where I immediately just snap and hit the canvas. So there was two from that one that got brought up when the Forbidden Door would happen, and it was so interesting to, I checked. Obviously, it went everywhere, and how there was a lot of fans who hadn't seen me ever wrestle before be absolutely mortified, and then there were just fans that had seen me wrestle being like, yeah, that's just an average Michael Oku bump, which is a bad thing. I put my hands up and say it's a bad thing if people think, oh, that's just average. No biggie. no big deal. I fully admit that. I tell you one thing. I don't know if I've said this publicly, but when I knew that it was a horrendous bump, was there was two people, like everybody checked on me backstage. I want to stress this, everybody. If you went past me, because there's monitors everywhere, there's like TVs in the locker rooms, so everybody, it was just like the show is on as everybody's, you know, doing whatever, and so it looks like everybody had at least seen it or seen a replay of it or whatever. It was cool to have Bryan Danielson ask if I was okay, in a weird way. Okay, maybe I shouldn't say, oh, that's cool, so maybe I'll it's not encouraging me to do it more, but that was cool. But when Renee Paquette, who is the husband of Jon Moxley, and the things that he has done, made sure to pull me aside and say, hey, you gotta be careful. That was one thing. That was like, okay, yeah, maybe I've messed up here. And then after the show is done, the main event, which was the lights out cage match that involved Darby Allin, once that's done, once he comes through the curtain, he says, dude, you okay? That's when I was like, all right, I've messed up. Okay, that must have been horrible. If Darby Allin is checking on my well-being, then I've maybe taken things a bit too far. So yeah, those are my signs that maybe it's time to just rethink how I do this wrestling thing, just a little bit.
No, you just broke me for a second because you called Renee the husband of Jon Moxley.
The wife. The partner.
Too hot for this. It's too hot for this.
Sorry, Renee.
No, I mean, back on track. I mean, obviously that match, just getting to do that in year 2, that's special for you, right?
Yeah, again, you talk about it doesn't get as full circle as that of like going to your, again, first ever live wrestling show, 2010. David Hasselhoff as the guest host of Raw.
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, if you were there, yeah, that's the one. Yeah, and just watching the wrestling show, being like, this is cool, and I was so far up. I was in the nosebleed, so to speak. Like I was, you know, I think I was still in college at the time, or maybe secondary school. It was like £40 to pay for. I would love to know how much it costs now for that same seat at a WWE show. By the way, but like £40 was like a lot anyway for me to pay when I'm like about 16 years old or 15 years old, and I got to see wrestling for the first time. I think Christian was on the show, I think William Regal was on the show, maybe like in like a Superstars match or some stuff. But yeah, like to do that, to watch that show, and I'd also gone on to see other shows at the O2 like after that point. Like I'd seen Pac wrestle there, so to see Pac wrestle at the O2 live, and then for me to have wrestled him the times that I have, is as full circle as it gets. And to do that for Forbidden Door, do my entrance, have people know who I am as well. Again, that was another thing that also still caught me off guard, where like, again, I keep doing more and more stuff, but to have that big of a building that is there to see an AEW pay-per-view, there was still a lot of people who were very loud for me, and I can only be so grateful that was the case.
Speaking of AEW, I do have to ask. I wouldn't be doing my journalistic due diligence if I didn't. Every few months, there seems to be obviously rumors about you. They are obviously back here in a couple of weeks with a little show next to the RevPro show the day after, just a little show. So with that being said, and with the caveat of, you know, you've kind of done all there is to do in RevPro and on the indies, let's do this a little differently. How about in the sense of, let's look at the rest of the year. What is something that you want to do that you haven't done before? A new opponent, a new territory. What comes to mind as something to tick off before the rest of the year? It can be AEW.
The first thing that comes to my mind is, I haven't been to Japan, and I feel like it's constantly either a wrestler or a fan is surprised that I haven't been to Japan in any capacity. Obviously, I'm a student of pro wrestling, and I love all pro wrestling. So naturally, I love Japanese wrestling. I love Japan, and it's a place that I think I've taken a lot from. Again, one of my one of the best compliments I ever received was after my match with Takeshita at Bola. He said to me that like I wrestle a Japanese style. And I was like, oh my god! I didn't even. That's such an amazing thing for a incredible Japanese wrestler to say. But at the same time, of course, you know, I'm going to be studying Japanese wrestling to try and get good at and better at wrestling. So as soon as you asked that question, that was the one that came to mind. In terms of wrestlers or opponents, I don't really have one because, again, I've been fortunate enough to wrestle so many of other people I grew up watching or people who are like around me that I've already wrestled. It's the thing that like I've loved about the indies. The thing I loved about sticking around in the indies is that there will always be a new crop of talent, and it's been so exciting to be able to find that new crop of talent and get in the ring with them. Like me being able to wrestle, having a singles match with Daniel Rivera earlier this year, Samuel St. Daniels, who's someone who, like, I don't want to say I've had a hand in training, but who's come to many of my training sessions and has, you know, I've seen grow, and they're only going to be getting better. They're just in the precipice. They're at the start of their career. The French wrestler TLB, we had a fun singles match just the other, I think, was it earlier this year? It might have been earlier this year. That like, there's these people around Europe that are just emerging and coming out of places that I didn't even know. And there's just like young talent that are getting better and better that I want to kind of test myself against. So, you know, depending on if I'm sticking around here, I want to go like on a little hunt to find the new hot talents and see how I can test myself against them, as well as maybe share some knowledge that I've received from the people who are above me that I've gotten to wrestle. But Japan would be the number one, I guess, goal, because it's just the one thing I haven't done.
But back to the original question. AEW, AEW next door to right next door to Wembley Arena, very close.
Yes.
They have a casino. They have a casino battle royal on that show, or a casino gauntlet, a match that is known for the odd surprise appearance. Let's say.
Mm-hmm.
How do you respond to that?
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Listen, the one that happened in 2024 at Wembley Stadium, that was such an interesting time for me in general, because there were rumors about me turning up in that one.
You were going to be in that one.
I found out like nearly like a year later that there were wrestlers that thought I was going to turn up. I think I can say this now, that like Leon Slater was there in the building watching the show, and he said that he got his phone out and started recording every time the countdown started playing because he was expecting me to come out. I was in the crowd watching as well. I was just on the other side of the building. He just didn't know, you know. And Luke Jacobs, who I had wrestled the day before, thought that he was going to see me in the gauntlet. He was also at the show. So there was just, the only thing I could do is take it as a compliment, the fact that people believed that like that is a thing that could happen. But there really was no discussion, at least at that time, of that happening, of me turning up. When it comes to this year, it's kind of the same thing. It's a similar thing of, it feels like it's the natural next step when you look at how most people's careers go. For me, and not saying that like I don't want to go, or I don't want to turn up at AEW, or I don't want to wrestle at Wembley Stadium. But for me, it's so important to kind of create a new narrative that you don't have to immediately drop everything to go to one of the major companies when they come knocking. I want it to be a thing where you can take pride in being an indie wrestler, being a wrestler that's plying their trade, especially within Europe, which, you know, the scene in Europe, well, I mean, the British scene obviously has taken a beating and have tried their best to recover and make things exciting again and build the trust within the fans to get behind us. It's so important for me to let people know that like you can kind of create a career on the indies, because again, that's back to, we talk about that 2002, 2000, I guess to 2002 to 2010 era of the indies. A lot of those wrestlers that were doing the Ring of Honors and everything, they were kind of there just thinking like, listen, WWE's not calling, so we just got to make this the best. We're going to make this the best that it can be. And they did. They did. They were like, everybody who would watch it would be like, yeah, this is kind of the best. This is actually the best wrestling. And there's nothing better than this. Obviously, they then did come knocking for all these people, and then they created their own indie with NXT and everything in between. But to me, it's so important that is how we kind of look at the indies and look at a RevPro or look at wherever. It's like, this can also be seen as the pinnacle, and you don't have to immediately jump at the chance to go somewhere. Now, all that to be said is, it feels like I'm avoiding the question. I promise I'm not. My favorite thing in professional wrestling is surprises. To this day,
Yep.
I do not want spoilers. If I want to watch a pay-per-view, I am staying off social media and I'm going to watch the pay-per-view, so I know I don't know a thing, and I can watch it clean, free of people's opinions, or if anybody returns, I can have it and have the memory fresh happen if I'm not watching live. My favorite thing about wrestling is surprise. That's why I think the Royal Rumble is such a great match, is because I think people love it because there's the element of surprises. It's like the Casino Gauntlet, the element of surprise. All that to say is that if I was in it, I wouldn't tell you.
He wasn't expecting you to, but I had to ask. You understand that.
Of course.
I wasn't expecting an answer, but I'm happy. I'm very happy with the answer you did give. Okay. Yeah. Switching gears from other interviews and things I've seen you talk about. I know you're a big theme song guy.
I am.
If you had to swap theme song with someone else, who would it be? And that's when I ask this, because I want to get onto something in a minute that honestly bothers me. It's
Okay. All right.
okay.
We'll get onto that. Okay. If I could swap a thing. Oh, geez, Louise.
If you could take someone's theme song, but the caveat is that they then have to use No Control.
They have to. Oh, God. How dare they? Oh, man. Okay. All right. So, man, I don't know if I could pull it off. But. So for me, I would actually use Just Close Your Eyes, the waterproof blonde version from Christian. Like that's the theme I would use. I think I could pull it off. And of course I could pull it off because there's a female vocalist in the chorus the same way there is in No Control. So if I have to give No Control to Christian, I also think he could pull it off for that reason.
That's fair. Now, I was thinking you might say the Bryants.
Oh,
Because I know you've posted that song on Instagram a few times, like on your story.
I have.
Yeah. As far as I'm aware, it's not a public song. It's certainly not easy to find if it is. I hate that song. I want the Bryants to lose matches because I hate that song so much. I like the Bryants, and nothing against the Bryants. I want them to lose so I don't have to hear that song twice. When
That's
I'm at
so
shows.
funny.
Yeah.
That's-
Where did your whole thing with that song come from?
Where did my idea for that song come from?
No, your whole
What?
you obviously you've posted it on your Instagram, and it feels like it's kind of a bit.
Right. Oh, you just want to know my thoughts on the song? Well, okay. So, oh man, you're gonna love this then, or / hate me. I helped them get that song made. How about that?
Oh,
How about that? How about that for appreciation? Yeah. So, the song, well, just a backstory in the song. It's kind of their story to tell, but whatever. But like Nino, I don't know the name of the band or how you pronounce it, but Bedoin Sound Clash. They have a song called Mountaintop, and that was the song he was using. And I just really like I really like the song, and I think everybody when they hear that song they really like it.
maybe I should listen to that one then.
Maybe you should, and listen, maybe you're not, and there's a chance that you might either think that like you'd like the song, but maybe it doesn't fit for a wrestling theme, and such a huge difference, right? Where like there are some songs that are like really good, but you're like, oh, that's not a wrestling entrance theme. And we had this song, and it's really really good, and I just said to him, hey man, like, this was before he had debuted for RevPro. I was like, you want to have a song that you own, just because there's going to come a time where you're not going to be able to use a song that you don't own. So how about I get in touch with Mikey Ruckus and he can play around with remaking that song? And he was like, yeah, sure. So we got into like him, Mikey Ruckus, kind of doing his own take on that song before he had debuted in RevPro. And then next thing you know, like all three of them get the call and they debut in RevPro together. That's kind of he was like, oh, perfect, great, a song that I can use, and that it can be used anywhere and with permission, without like, you know, he owns it, and that's the thing. I am aware that it's divisive, because don't worry, there are wrestlers in the back that like also are like, this is divisive. It's divisive in the back. Don't worry, with the boys and girls, it's divisive as well.
I'm glad I'm not.
So, yes, so you're not on your own. So what I will say is that you're not on your own. It is very divisive, and I think because it's divisive, it makes me want to lean into it more and not troll people, but then play it more. I think I do like it. I understand why people don't like it, but so because of that, I just keep using it whenever I can.
So yeah, I was hoping there was like an irony to it, and yeah, you're proving me right. There we go. Got it. Right. I got some quick fire questions for you now. Just
Okay.
shout the first thing that comes to your head. Favorite food?
Boy. Oh, jollof rice. Let me tell you something. You make some jollof rice. Amira's learned how to make jollof rice, and she makes it good. It's good. The best kind of rice you can ever have ever.
Favorite drink?
Oh gosh, a margarita. I'm not drinking one now, but it's margarita.
What drink have you got there?
This is actually a lemon and strawberry juice drink. I promise that there's nothing else inside of it, but I can't keep that promise.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. What is your go-to breakfast?
Oof. So, scrambled eggs, and if I have time to make it, I'm gonna make some porridge and oats. It's very athlete. It's not like there's nothing I'm super happy with, but they're like porridge with blueberries.
Okay, but if you didn't have time to make it and had to pick up a breakfast cereal, what are you choosing?
Oh God, man! Growing up, I was a sucker for Nesquik. Just chocolate everywhere, chocolate milk. Yeah. It was Nesquik. It has to be that.
Favorite movie?
Speed. Yeah, Speed, starring Keanu Reeves, because you just have to listen to Keanu Reeves and then you won't die. If you don't listen to him, you die.
Favorite TV show?
Oof. Let's go with South Park. That's what came to my head. South Park, yeah.
Favorite musician?
Oh gosh. Who's my favorite musician? That's not cancelled.
Okay.
Oh gosh. All right, I'm gonna do this because we found out together that we both like her. I'm gonna say Ellie Goulding. How about that? Right out of the book. I found out myself and Amira, we both like Ellie Goulding, so let's just put her as my favorite.
And crucially, not cancelled.
Yes, she's. I hope so. I haven't checked. So I'll do a check after this.
Yeah. What is your favorite sport other than pro wrestling?
It's probably football. I wish I watched as much as I used to. I think when I started wrestling, I stopped. I watched a lot less football, but I tuned into the World Cup. I was fully locked in on that, so it was cool to like watch some football again properly. So yeah, it's that's the one.
Newcastle, right?
Newcastle supporter, yeah, that's the one.
How
Yeah.
does a kid from London become a Newcastle fan? What's the story there?
Well, as a child, I was a basic bitch who just liked the footballers that scored the goals, and being an England supporter because I live in England, I was like, well, when I was a kid, I was like, well, Alan Shearer is the one that's scoring the most goals. Oh, I've got to support a club. What club does he play for? Newcastle? Okay, I guess that's the club I'm going to support. And there began the years of misery.
That's fair. Favorite match. So we'll do a favorite match to watch and a favorite of your own matches as well.
Well, number one is The Rock versus Hogan, WrestleMania 18. That's the one. Yeah. In terms of the favorite of mine, God, man, it feels like I have to choose one of the world matches. My brain goes to myself versus Luke Jacobs at the Copper Box at the anniversary show for the title. If I could say the reason why, just because I think that's the match I'm most proud of for the both of us. I feel like we had a lot we had to prove with that match, and there'll always be the asterisk of having a match with Will Ospreay, where like it's gonna be great because it's Will, and I'm aware of what I brought to those matches. But I think there was an added pressure of us having that match in front of me and Luke having that match in front of nearly 4,000 people, and getting it done in front of that many people.
Yeah, and Andy's gone on record as well, talking about how after the first Copper Box show with Will and Shingo, how important it was to headline that second show with two British guys. And I mean, obviously yourself and Luke were the two guys at the moment, at that moment. And then yeah, I mean, I love that match as well. I was a big fan of that match too. Who was you've kind of touched on this earlier, but first favorite wrestler?
Yeah, I think the first one was The Rock. I think it was the first. I was trying to think if there was like maybe someone like before then. Man, as a kid, I loved Goldust. Just for a little aside, I loved Goldust. I still do. Oh my god, I have always. But I just remember really loving Goldust when I was young, which is maybe an interesting choice when you're a kid watching the Attitude Era. But I huge fan of Goldust, and I appreciated him more as I became a wrestler and as I saw the stuff he would do, and as he's still good. And it's always cool to see him backstage at AEW when I'm there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you have a chance to meet him at AEW? But yeah.
Yeah, I did. I think that was on like the first Cardiff show. I was just like still like surreal that I'd wrestled, and I saw him walking up some stairs, and I was just like, "Hey man, I just want to say, you're the man." I didn't have anything of importance to say. I just let you know, you're great, man. You're just great. That's all I had to say.
Favorite championship belt design of all time, and of ones you've held.
Okay. Man, of all time, I think the big gold can't be beat for me. I think there's a reason that it kind of has in some way been brought back now. I think there's a reason for that, but the fact that like it was like that as the NWA title, and then it became the WCW title, and then when it got brought into WWE, it still stayed the same. I think that's evidence as to why it's exactly what it needs to be. It's beautiful. Second place would be the IWGB heavyweight, but like that to me, that's the one. The favorite one that I've held, man, when this thing isn't broken and not messed up, it probably is the British heavyweight title. It's just something about it. I don't know. I don't even know what it is. I think it's probably based on some title, but I I don't know what, aesthetically there's something about it that like it feels grand, it looks really cool, and it's of all the titles I've held, it's the one where like fans ask the most to kind of like either hold it or they want to even just take a photo of it on its own, because I don't know, there's something about it that seems big. It looks nearly like the Winged Eagle, which is also an all-timer title, and I think that's probably why it's such a cool title.
It's a big old belt as well, isn't it? The RevPro one.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you go back and rewatch the the York Hall match of Will when he reveals this for the first time, yeah, I remember actually thinking when I saw it backstage, I was like, I can't win that. I am too small. I can't win that. I'm like, I can't win the title if it's that size. I can't win it because it would be ridiculous. So I'm glad that he found a way to make it smaller. He didn't mean for it to be that big. It was just a mistake in production, and then we've got it to a nice size that fits me very lovely.
Yeah. Similar to the theme song question, if you could swap finishes with someone, who would it be? Obviously, the caveat is they have to use the half crab, or I guess the Final Destination now, whichever one.
Golly, what is the best finisher? Man, it's gonna have to be the Stunner. I think it's gonna have to be the Stone Cold Stunner. If I could just do the Stone Cold Stunner, oh my god. Oh yeah, this is Stone Cold Stunner. I think that's always goes down as like, and then just it'll be cool to do it and just see how many different ways people want to take it, do a backflip or whatever. So that's the one. And if it means that Stone Cold just doing a crab, if it holds his body, if it keeps his body healthy, and it makes him wrestle longer, then I've done my job. I've healed the world of wrestling.
Yeah. Why the half crab for you, out of interest?
It's a similar thing of making sure that I can do a move to anyone, pretty much anyone. And again, Chris Jericho, there's a huge, there's a lot of things I do that are like shades of Chris Jericho, like the lion sort from the top rope. But I really liked how, especially in like the mid 2000s, there were a lot of wrestlers that were using submissions, and they were able to kind of get into the submissions from different ways, and there was different reversals into those submissions or out of those submissions, and I just thought it made those matches exciting. Jericho and Angle was a big one as well, that like found different ways to get into the ankle lock, and I thought that just took their match to another level because they had that move that could do that. So I just always thought that if I could have a submission, that would be useful in that sense as well. And instead of doing a Walls Jericho 2 arms, I'd do this with the 1 leg. And I'm also a huge fan of Lance Storm as well. So him seeing how he can do the backwards roll into a crab was always appealing to me. And again, longevity wise, I really was thinking about, right, if they wanna wheel me out as a legend when I'm 65 years old and they want to just whip on a crab, I can do that. I might not be able to do a frog splash anymore, but I could probably definitely just do a crab and the crowd will be so happy. So that's kind of what I was thinking with it. I think it makes my matches more exciting when you can find different ways into it, out of it, escalate it with different like bridges and stuff, and then it's kind of stuck in that sense.
Who's the funniest person you've met in wrestling?
Goodness me. I mean, it's probably Curtis. I think Curtis Chapman is probably the funniest person, and it's not a surprise. It was always just a good time to be around him. Just one of my best friends. Just even like if I'd be meeting up with him, there were times that I would go to training in Portsmouth because I knew he'd be there, and I wouldn't even be going to do wrestling. I'd just know that he'd be there, so we just get to laugh a bit. So. And I think you can hear from so many different wrestlers that when he was there backstage, you just kind of knew that, all right, it's time to get ready because we're going to get roasted, or it's time we got to get ready to roast him or roast everyone, and everyone's going to be just like laughing and happy. So I think Curtis is top of the list.
Yeah, you are not the first person to say Curtis when I've asked that question, and
Exactly.
it's obviously not a surprise.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and obviously, we all miss him.
Every day. Every day.
Just finally for this one, best piece of advice you've been given.
Man, I don't know who told me this. This is definitely the best piece of advice, but I forgot who told me. But is don't forget to love it. And that's when it comes to wrestling. And it's that sticks with me so much because it's so easy to chase the dragon, whatever that may be, of like I've got to go to the next level or next step and whatever, or you're just trying to figure out how to have the best match in that moment and you're not satisfied or you're not happy with like how things are going in your career or how you look. There could be all these different elements that you could be kind of kicking yourself about, and even just to all the way going to like being so nervous of going through the curtain that you feel like not wanting to go through the curtain because you're so nervous, and just having that reminder of like, no, this is what you wanted to do, and this is supposed to be fun, and you're supposed to enjoy this, and you're getting to do this thing that you know, for a lot of people always wanted to do or took an interest in doing and really enjoyed doing. So I think that's a reminder for me where like whether it's like a long journey, if you know my knees are sore or anything is the case, or just like, oh man, I would have liked it if this would have gone this way, but you know whatever, like the booking is the way it is and I'm not getting to do something the way I wanted to. You know, there's so many things that are, when it comes down to it, so menial, so like not very, they're very unimportant, that reminder of like just don't forget that like this is fun. This is supposed to be fun. You're supposed to enjoy it and you're getting to do it. So have that in your mind whenever you're doing wrestling training, going to cut a promo, anything to do with wrestling. Just having that in my mind has always helped me.
Perfect. I think that's a good place to finish. I want to thank you for taking the time today, Michael. I truly, truly appreciate it. I appreciate the passion that you showed during this interview. Um, RevPro 14-year anniversary is where you can see him defend that beautiful British Heavyweight Championship that we spoke about. That's behind his shoulder right now. Taking on former tag team partner, the winner of the Revolution Rumble, Connor Mills. That goes down at the OVO Arena, Wembley, Saturday, 29th of August. Tickets are still available if you're in town for All In. RevPro On Demand is where you can watch it if you're not at All In, and also on, for the first time, my AEW. So there's no excuse not to watch it, really, whether you're in London or not. Yeah, it's a stock card up and down. In addition to the main event, we have FTR taking on the Cowboy Way, Leon Slater taking on his trainer and mentor, Liam Slater, Jay Joshua taking on Zack Sabre Jr., Alexis Falcon versus Kanji for the women's title, and so much more. Luke Jacobs versus Pac just announced. So I want to actually get your thoughts on that one as someone who's had big matches with both of them.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's well, so you watched the Southampton show, right? Where like Luke Jacobs got on the microphone and then obviously laid out the open challenge. It's so funny that, you know, there's that 50 Cent meme where he's like, why do you say fuck me for? And I think like in that promo he mentioned me like twice in this promo where he's also putting out an open challenge for Wembley Arena. And it's again, you can't make it up. The irony of, I think there's something in Luke Jacobs where he wants to try and, you know, match the success I've had in RevPro with the titles and stuff and the things that he's won, that it nearly is the perfect opponent for him because he's now wrestling someone who I'm the only person that's beaten Pac in the history of RevPro. So this could be another huge moment for him. Again, Luke Jacobs, you talk about him as a wrestler. Him being a singles wrestler, again, is dangerous for every singles competitor because once that happened last time, which again was unfortunately because of an Ethan Allen injury, and we all wish him the best. It just kind of like there was like a revelation of like, who is it? Like, who? Not like who is this guy, but we just didn't. People just really discovered how good Luke was as a singles, and that led to everything that came his way. Beating me for the cruiserweight title, and then beating me for the heavyweight title. So like for him to now have this moment, this match, a singles match at an anniversary show, and we've seen what he's done in singles matches and anniversary shows. I mean, I'll go as far as to say like the match he had against Ishii at that anniversary show in 2023, I think, and I was there at All In, I think that was the best match of the entire weekend. I honestly think that, and that's not me trying to talk up RevPro. I genuinely don't think there was a better match that weekend than Luke Jacobs versus Ishii, even though there was a Wembley Stadium show in front of 80,000 people the next day. So he's proven what he can do in a singles match.
The main event of that show was Will Ospreay versus Shingo.
Yeah, exactly. That is, and that match was great. And there was great wrestling that weekend. I'm not saying things sucked on that weekend. I'm saying there was great wrestling on that weekend. The best match was Luke Jacobs versus Ishii. So he's proven himself, and then winning the title the next year, wrestling me. I think wrestling Pac, who on his day I think is the best wrestler in the world. I don't care what anyone tells me. I've experienced it firsthand, and I've seen him firsthand. On his day, Pac is the best wrestler in the world. So for this match to happen at the anniversary show again, it's that combination of, it technically is a RevPro match. When you talk about, here's two British wrestlers, here's someone who has history with Revolution Pro Wrestling, or history even prior to RevPro with, shows that Andy Quildan has booked when it comes to like some IPW and stuff. It's cool that you can like pull from people from AEW who are like, oh yes, they're an AEW star and they're part of a huge faction in AEW, but they're a British wrestler with all this history in RevPro. And for Luke Jacobs to have that match, hey, again, like I love as a wrestler being on a card and thinking, man, I don't know how I'm gonna have a better match than that. I love that feeling, and that's what that match gives me the feeling of. I mean, loads of matches on the card give me that feeling, and that one does too. It's gonna be a hell of a match, no question about it.
Of course. Yeah. So obviously, make sure you go check out RevPro 14th anniversary show in 2 weeks tomorrow, as we record this, the 29th. 29th?
29th. Listen, you tell me. Yeah. 29th. Yeah.
The 29th of August. Yeah. Make sure you go check that out. I'll give you the floor, Michael. Feel free to just obviously shout out where people can keep up with you. Where can people see you wrestle over the next few weeks as well? Where can people buy your merch? I know you've got a brand new T-shirt as well, which I've actually got an order from you, which is on the way. Probably shouldn't say that while I'm interviewing you. It seems like there's some transactions going on here, but
no, that's fine. Yeah, we'll make sure. No, we'll make sure it gets to you. MikeLoco.com.
Yeah.
MikeLoco.com is a place where you can get some of those new T-shirts. Online only, online exclusive only. Speaking of which, Pro Wrestling Tees, I actually started up a Pro Wrestling Tees store, which has some older designs that maybe like some American fans might not have been aware of, and they can get their hands on. But my main place is Revolution Pro Wrestling. As you said, like at the start of the interview, they pretty much do a show every week. I think if you count the number of shows this year, it's probably over 50. So that equals to a show a week. And you can catch all of those shows streaming live on RevPro On Demand. You get like a high quality version that gets re-uploaded, usually like a few days later. And that's kind of where you see me, I would say, at my best. And that's not like to segue into their slogan of pro wrestling at its best, but I really do think you get some of the best wrestling on the planet with Revolution Pro Wrestling. In terms of where else you can see me, well, again, all roads lead to Wembley Arena this month. That does not mean that I am not wrestling anywhere else this month. It's just maybe there are some places that have been unannounced. I thought that it would be cool to like turn up in a few places. So watch this space. watch myaew.com, because I might be on some places that might be airing on myaew.com. That's alluding to whatever. Who knows?
I didn't know you were
And,
making your Pro Wrestling Eve debut with a mirror.
hey, listen. Spoilers. No spoilers.
It's a mystery show. They are running a mystery show. Who knows?
There you go. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, and then social media. I try to make sure that at least I'm putting on my social media where you can find me if I'm turning up anywhere soon. And that'll be your best way to get all things Michael Oku.
Perfect. And I think the perfect way to end this is just if you've got a message for Connor Mills.
God. Maybe it won't be direct to Connor Mills, but it will be about the match and Mills. And we did the face to face at Portchester Hall, and there was a moment where he was really fiery, and getting red in the face, and he was talking about how this is the best Connor Mills. This is the most complete Connor Mills that there's ever been. He at one point said that he's the best wrestler on this planet, and similar to kind of what I said about Pac, I can make an argument that on his day, you can make that argument that Mills is at least the best wrestler in the country, and he's had some incredible performances where you think, man, he might be the best wrestler on the planet. I agree with that. I do honestly agree with that. I do agree this is the best Mills that there's ever been. I do agree that he's finally put all the pieces together. So when you come to Wembley Arena, you will see the best of Mills. However, the best Connor Mills is still not better than me. And that's all I've got to say about that, by the way. It also seems like Steve is frozen. So while I try and get Steve back, I'll keep going on and saying that during that moment where he was saying he's the best moment in the planet, I nearly said, yeah, you are. I was looking, he was got right into my eyes. I nearly said, yeah, you are. I was feeling it. I was you believe it, and I believe it. And I could make the argument that me wanting to bring Mills into RevPro all of 6 years ago was legit because I believed that this is where he belongs, and this is who I believe he could be, and this is the perfect fit for Connor Mills. And I think we've now got to that point where now the fans agree with that tenfold, and now he believes that tenfold, and to me it does genuinely make sense that he's in the main event of this show. And even though that is the case, I don't care if people want him to win. I'm making sure that I leave still as the undisputed British heavyweight champion, being the first wrestler to defend it, walk in and walk out of Wembley Arena as the undisputed British heavyweight champion. And to all those who will be very, very upset at the result of the match, all I can say is that I appreciate the passion.